Hi, and welcome back to Grammar Unit 3, which covers pronouns. In this video, we'll learn about 3 more types of pronouns. First, a quick review. Pronouns are words that substitute for nouns or other pronouns, and the words that the pronouns replace are called antecedents. Pronouns serve the same functions as nouns in sentences, and there are 9 types of pronouns that are used differently in sentences. In the previous video, we learned about personal, indefinite, and possessive pronouns. Now, we'll examine the next 3, demonstrative, reflexive, and intensive. Remember to take notes on your pronoun handout as you watch, and feel free to pause the video at any time. The 4th type of pronoun is demonstrative. Demonstrative pronouns point to or establish relation to their antecedent nouns. They can also indicate proximity to the speaker. These are the 4 demonstrative pronouns: this, these, that, and those. Instead of these shoes, I reached for those on the top shelf. In our example sentence, those is the demonstrative pronoun that indicates a relationship between its antecedent shoes and the other pair of shoes on the top shelf, and it serves a noun function as the object of the preposition for. This is important to remember because if you look at the other word, these, which looks like a demonstrative pronoun, we remember that it is actually an adjective because it is modifying the noun immediately following it, shoes. So it is an adjective and not a pronoun. The next type of pronoun is reflexive. Reflexive pronouns show that nouns mentioned earlier are involved and that the nouns complete the action to or for himself, herself, or themselves. These are the reflexive pronouns: myself, yourself, himself, herself, themself, which is a gender inclusive pronoun, and itself, ourselves, yourselves, and themselves. Let's look at some examples. We novice architects asked ourselves if we were ready for the competition. In this sentence, we first look at the action verb, and that tells us that our pronoun ourselves is completing the action. Who or what were asked? Ourselves. So it's serving the noun function of a direct object, and it's indicating that its antecedent, we, is completing the action. In the second example, I wondered if I was being honest with myself. Myself is serving the noun function of the object of the preposition with, and it's indicating that the subject of that clause, I, is completing the action of being honest. The next type of pronoun is called intensive. Intensive pronouns add emphasis to nouns or other pronouns, and importantly, they serve as appositives. This is how we determine the difference between intensive and reflexive pronouns. Remember that appositives almost always come immediately after the noun or pronoun that they rename. Verbs never separate nouns or pronouns from appositives. So in our example, you yourself must decide if you have prepared sufficiently. Yourself is renaming the pronoun you and adding emphasis. It is acting as an appositive. The teacher explained that the students themselves would grade their essays. Themselves is referring back to students. It's acting as an appositive of the students by renaming them. Let's take a minute to practice. Pause the video, follow the labeling instructions for the second example sentence on your handout, and then we'll review together. Identify the verbs by type, underline all of the pronouns, and then label them by type and noun function. If you need to look back at your notes on noun functions, feel free to do so. All right, let's check your work. Remember, finding the verbs first in a sentence will help you identify the clauses, nouns, and pronouns. The three verbs are were, moved, and forbade. And there are 5 pronouns in the sentence. I've used red to indicate the pronoun's antecedents. The first pronoun is those, and it's demonstrative. Its antecedent is axes, and it is indicating the axes in front of the door. It's acting as the direct object of the action verb moved. The second pronoun is herself, which is reflexive because it indicates that its antecedent, Penelope, completed the action. It's functioning as the object of the preposition by. The next pronoun is himself, and we can tell it's intensive because it's acting as an appositive, renaming the antecedent king. Remember that appositives almost always immediately follow the noun or pronoun it renames. Don't confuse an appositive with a predicate nominative, which always follows a be verb or linking verb and renames the subject. Anyone is an indefinite pronoun, and it's acting as the direct object of the action verb forbade. Who or what did the king forbid? Anyone. The final pronoun is a personal pronoun that renames the antecedent axes. It's acting as the direct object of the word touching, which is something we call a verbal, but we'll cover that idea in a later unit. That's the end of part 2. I'll see you next time for part 3, which will be the final video about pronoun types. See you then.